Hi guys, Hon MMA 13 here, back with another prediction, this time for UFC Fight Night, Cejudo versus Yudong. Main card predictions, and we're getting straight into fight number 1 on the main card. And it is a good main card. This is probably the weakest fight on it though, apart from possibly the next one, which is a bit of a mismatch. We'll get into that. Alonzo Menifield versus Julius Walker. Walker has a huge reach advantage in this fight. This is his UFC debut, which people might think, oh, he's fighting an experienced guy. But Menifield's coming off a 2-fight KO loss streak. And the fight that really caught my eye here, which a lot of you might remember, which really helped me with predicting this fight, is, I don't know if you remember when Menifield took on OSP back in 2020. In that fight, OSP caught Menifield with a hook, which has always been something that I've worried about with Menifield, because he's very, very like clinched in, stuck together. He tends to be a bit of a stuck in the mud type of fighter who doesn't really have any fluidity to his game. He's quite rigid and stiff, and he got caught with an unorthodox hook by OSP, which took him out. Now in Julius Walker, the name Walker is very apt here because he has a very wild and athletic style. He relies a lot on his athletic ability, and just like a Johnny Walker. But he's got grappling, which really excites me for him as a prospect. He's 25 years old, and he's got a lot of upside. And I think even though this is his UFC debut, fighting a guy who's coming off 2 KO losses, and Menifield's going in there with someone as explosive as Julius Walker, I think this is a perfect matchup for him in his debut. I can see him getting the KO in the round 1, and I'm really confident in this pick. I would put money on that, because I feel like Menifield's going to be so worried. He's going to be so cautious. He's going to get caught with something. He's going to be backing up. He's going to be stiff. He's going to be trying to get into the rhythm. He's going to be throwing the jab, and I can just see him getting caught over the top with a really nasty hook. And I can see the jab coming in and him just getting timed with it and getting rocked severely. And then I just see a ground and pound finish, which, as I've said, he's got good grappling. He knows how to get on top when he rocks someone. He knows how to get that mount. And he's got 3, I believe, ground and pound finishes on his record, which have come from him rocking people with that hook. So if you watch his fights, he loves throwing that hook and he times it beautifully. So I can see a really early finish here for Julius Walker and an upset. And I think he's going to be a real problem in this division. And he's one of my guys to watch out for in that light heavyweight division, because we've been really starved of prospects lately. So round 1 KO, Julius Walker, probably a fight of the night bonus. Moving on. Fight number 2 on the main card. Gene Silva versus Melsik Baghdasaryan. Baghdasaryan is really, really shit. He's a 33-year-old prospect, and one of my favourite facts about Baghdasaryan is he is the only person to ever get submitted by Joshua Kalibau. Now that is embarrassing as it is. So he's getting rear naked choked by Kalibau. So what's he going to do against a Gene Silva who's got a grounded game, great striking, great ground and pound, so he's got good grappling as well. He can get up to the back, he can switch positions, he can scramble, he can do it all. So I see this being a really, really big mismatch, as I alluded to earlier. This fight is one of the biggest the biggest mismatches in recent times in a UFC card. I really do believe that. A main card, should I say. You usually got well-matched 50-50 fights on a main card. This one is not one of them. I think Gene Silva's going to absolutely batter Baghdasaryan, but he's got a lot more experience as Mag 6. I think he can hang in there in the first round. He'll get broken down. He'll have a bit of toughness there, because he's been in the UFC a while and had tough matchups. But I think he's going to end up getting absolutely paggered, and he's going to get finished in the second round, I think. Probably against the fence when he's backing up. And I can see him trying to reverse the position on the fence, but just getting outstrengthed by the younger, more explosive Gene Silva, and then getting absolutely lit up against the fence and probably elbowed to oblivion. I can then see him getting falling to the ground and taken mount, and then just getting paggered. Possibly one of the first 12-6 finishes that we'll see in the UFC since the rule change, because I can see Gene Silva, he's a bit artistic. He likes to switch things up. He likes to get a bit freaky. So I can see him landing those 12-6s and really trying to get a statement in this fight. So that is my random prediction for the card. I think Gene Silver's going to get an artistic, weird 12-6 elbow finish where he just like starts landing at will because he's just absolutely lit him up on the fence and made him fall and crumble. So that's my prediction. Round 2, after really putting the pressure on in round 1 and just breaking him down, because Gene Silver is one of the most technical fighters, especially on the feet, that is in the UFC right now. So I really am looking forward to seeing the progress of his career. Moving on. Fight number 3 on the main card. Rob Font versus Gene Matsumoto. I think Font's washed at this point. I think his best days are behind him. He's in his last fight against Carla Phillips. I wasn't impressed. I just thought he'd look a bit more explosive. He really looked like age is catching up to him, and I just can't see him getting anywhere near the top of the division again at this point. You know, bantamweight's a stacked division. I think we've seen the best of him at this point. Rob Font, he's given us some good knockouts, but I just think he's fighting someone in Gene Matsumoto who's just got a lot more upside now in his career. I've got in my notes here that his great grappling will be the key in this fight. Matsumoto, he's got really good grappling. He's got 3 guillotines on his record, which, as we know, are hard to get at high level. He's got a lot of rear naked chokes, which is, you know, the usual for a grappler. But the one that really stood out to me is Barber choke. He's got a really impressive Barber choke. I've seen him use that. He's got Barber choke submissions on his record, but he's come close in other fights, and he's got a really good transition to it. And I just think his slickness on the ground, his variety of submissions are going to be a big problem for Rob Font, who is getting up in age. And as we know, bantamweight transitions are very quick. And I think someone like Rob Font's going to be lost against this guy when he's on the ground. So I think it's going to be a late round 2 submission for Matsumoto. I just think he's going to have too much on the ground, and he's going to have too much experience grappling and make it really hard for someone like Rob Font, who's always like to keep it on the feet, and he's got no real offense on the ground, and his defense is definitely not high level because he has in the past been exposed in them positions, but he's got explosivity on the feet. But I think he lost that in recent fights, and I just think he ain't got any kind of things to give anymore in this division. I think he might have to even move up if he wants to continue his career, because he's not looking the same guy. His speed's not there, and I think he needs to possibly move up to featherweight where the speed isn't as much of a problem. Moving on, co-main event, Brendan Allen versus one of my favourite fighters, Alexander Hernandez. Now, Alexander Fluffy Hernandez in his last fight really impressed me. You might be able to still see my reaction to that fight before. Yeah, cut open Pereira. He was impressive against Mikel Pereira. He looked like he was really getting his ground and pound off in that fight. I know that Pereira gassed after round 1, but it was still impressive to see Alex Hernandez be patient enough to not, you know, rush the finish. He was really just dissecting Pereira on the ground. He ended up getting the win there. I know a lot of people might think, oh, he got stopped by a cut, but, you know, people like to kick off when people don't like have finishing instinct and say, oh, we should have gone for the finish there. I don't like that he didn't finish him. That ain't a bad thing. When you're patient, that can be a good sign of a fighter that's really confident in his ability, because Alex Hernandez knew that he could go all night, and he knew that he had the dominant positions in that fight, and he probably knew he'd get the stoppage eventually anyway, because Miguel Pereira looked like he was dying in there. So Brendan Allen, he's quite a cocky guy. He's not very likeable. He's one of my least favourite personalities in the UFC. But I must admit, he's 27, 28 years of age. He's got all-round good game. He can do everything. And he's looked good before his last fight. Even in the first round of his last fight, he got top position and won the first round against Mamavov, who has gone from strength to strength since then. And he looked pretty impressive in hindsight in that fight, because we've seen Mamavov striking now, and not a lot of people can cope with that. And Brendan Allen held his own in them positions before getting dominated on the ground later in the fight. But he dominated that first round. And I'm afraid to say, even though Hernandez has got amazing cardio and one of my favourite fighters in the UFC, I love his grappling, I love his ground control, I think he's going to get beat in this fight. I think Brendan Allen's going to get one of those typical Allen workman-like victories where he just does enough in each round. Similar to the Curtis Blades 2 fight, I can see a similar performance here, and him just having too much variety and switching things up well. He reminds me of the Sean Brady of the middleweight division. Obviously less skill level because it's middleweight, a bit sloppier, but he's got really good rounded game. He uses things well, he mixes up well, and he knows when to shoot takedowns. He very rarely misses a takedown if he goes for it. And I see him just using his striking to make his takedowns more effective, and that's going to be the difference because both guys have good takedowns, but Allen has the better striking, and he has more length, and he has better calf kicks, and he has just an all-round better game. And he's the younger man, so I'm going to have to go with him in this fight by decision, first decision of the main card, and I think it's going to be a good scrap, possibly the fight of the night. Moving on to what we're all here for, the main event, Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong. Now Cejudo, he didn't impress me too much in his fight against Merab, but if there's one thing that did impress me, it was the fact that he stayed in there and managed to, not give up, because Cejudo in the past can have a bit of a tantrum if things aren't going his way. He tends to be quite explosive in the first rounds, but he really held his own in that last fight. And I feel like the fact that this fight is 5 rounds instead of 3 rounds is actually a benefit to Yadong, because Yadong has a lot more. He has a lot more youth on his side, but he also has a lot more kind of a technical striking style where he can pick at range, whereas Cejudo relies on grappling, which takes up a lot of your cardio. And I think Yadong has got some of the best takedown defence in the bantamweight division. I thoroughly believe that. You can watch his fight even against Petr Yan. I know that he lost that fight, but he was amazing at times in that fight. That was a really impressive performance, in my opinion, by Song Yadong. Well, in a lot of people's opinion. And I think it was, at the time, seen as a bad thing on Yadong's record because he was the first win Yan had in a while. But since we've seen Yan in the Figueiredo fight, that's a really impressive performance to me looking back. Petr Yan showed since then that he's still a top 5, top 3 bantamweight. So I think Yadong, people were hard on him after that fight, but since then, I think he's redeemed himself. He's had good performances. He's also had really, really unlucky decisions go against him in the past, I feel. So it's going to be really, really important that he gets the finish here, because I think this will be a close fight. But I think if we're going on finishability, you've got to go with Yadong here. If you were putting money on there's a finish in this fight, who got it, you're going to say Song Yadong. And I think he's going to get it here. I think he's going to get it against, possibly, I wouldn't say he's going to get the finish against the fence, but I think he can get, like, when Cejudo kind of goes for a takedown, he tends to, like these typical wrestlers, he tends to try and switch things up. Like he might go for that single leg, but then he might think, oh, I'm not getting this, I'm going to go single to double, but then they'll go for the body lock and work the way up to the clinch. For some reason, I can see Yadong landing a knee in that sequence while Cejudo's trying to make his way back up and get, that kind of head against the chest, that high, like, where you've got the header bump below the shoulder and you're trying to kind of wear on your opponent. Why can I see Yadong just pushing out, getting an elbow and just kneeing Cejudo to the body and just winding him and then getting the finish? I can really see that against the fence. I can see Cejudo just getting elbowed as he's coming up. He's got that position. I can see Yadong just switching into the underhooks and just really hitting Cejudo with a hard elbow and then knee combo. And I really can see Cejudo just holding his body and going to the ground and just being finished there on the ground. I can see that so much in my head. Like, I can envision that finish, that sequence, and then getting ground and pounded really bad. And that could be really the end of Cejudo's career if that happens, because he doesn't often get finished. So my prediction is, first round, Cejudo uses wrestling, has success, possibly gets, reversed, but then gets the better of the transition still, because he manages to get the ground control time, but possibly gets reversed, and then obviously Yadong's going to want to try and get back to his feet. So I think on control time, maybe Cejudo will take the round. Second round, I see Yadong starting to put his striking on display and keeping distance better. Cejudo's going to come rushing in, trying to get some, punches off, because he's not going to just use his grappling. He's going to try and switch things up. and he's going to maybe take a round off as well. So he's maybe going to win the first round, heavy wrestling, second round, try and find his range on the feet, because it's exhausting, as I said, to wrestle all match, and it's not a 3-rounder. So I think we'll see less of what we saw in the Merab fight, with it being 5 rounds. But then I think in the third, Cejudo's going to get to the fence. He's going to get really, really frustrated that he can't get a takedown, so he's going to try and work his way further up the body, get the body lock, put his head against him, try and wear on Yudon, and then I just see Yudon grabbing underhooks because he's the taller guy, he's got the high ground and he's stronger, and then elbow, knee to the body, Cejudo's heart crumbles, and then ground and pound from Yudon. End of night. Bye, Cejudo. Thanks for cringing us out for the rest of your career, but you're done. You're done. So thanks for watching, guys. That's my prediction. And I think it's going to be a really good card. Best fight night of the year so far, without a doubt. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you. Subscribe. See you later.